Hello and welcome to your new virtual classroom. Today we are going to be talking about intangible assets. And intangible assets, like all assets, it's something we own with a future economic value, but intangibles are things that you cannot touch. Usually they are some sort of a right or privilege that gives you a competitive advantage. All right. If you're looking at your notes, and I hope you have your skeletal notes where you can kind of just follow along and fill things in while I'm talking. Okay, they also generally must be purchased and they can't be created internally. The reason for that is when you create something internally, you have to expense those costs until you get to something called technological feasibility. So basically, until you know it's going to work, you have to expense all the costs, all the R&D costs, the people, the whatever you're using to develop it. And then once it's technically feasible, then that's when you're going to go and get your patent or copyright or whatever it is, whichever intangible you're applying for. So in general, most of the time, you'll find that intangible assets, if a company has them on their book, they've been purchased, usually when you acquire another company. Okay. So with our fixed assets, we depreciated them, right? So we booked the asset and then we expensed it by booking depreciation. We're going to use a very similar concept with intangibles, but it's called amortization. We will amortize the assets. Okay, you'll get used to the word. So it's amortization, A-M-O-R-T-I-Z-A-T-I-O-N. And we'll talk about amortization in a second. But let's talk about some of our common intangibles. All right, the first is a copyright. So a copyright is usually related to some sort of work of art. So books, music, movies, actual art, paintings, those can all be copywritten. There's actually a great story of a potter, someone who makes ceramics, and one of his ideas was taken and used by Tesla, and he sued Tesla and won because his art had a copyright on it and Tesla was not allowed to use it without his permission. And he ended up making some money off of that. So you never know. All right, first, copyrights have a life. They don't go on forever. They are good for 70 years after the death of the creator. Okay, so things that will have a copyright would be books. If you haven't read this, The Goal by Elihu Goldratt is it's a business novel, so it talks about business. You can read it guilt-free because you're actually learning something, but because it's a novel, it's a quick read. There's characters and a storyline and all of that. Okay, so there's copyright on this, and this author has passed away, so his 70 years is ticking down. So copyrights used to only be good for 50 years after the death of the creator, and then we got to close to 50 years past the death of Walt Disney, and there was a lot of lobbying to get that extended to 70 years. We are now approaching 70 years past the death of Walt Disney, so we'll see if they extend it. But for now, the law is 70 years. So right now, only Disney can use Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse. Once that copyright expires, anyone can put Mickey Mouse on anything they want. Disney will no longer have that protection. The next one is patents. So patents usually apply for these from the government, and they're on inventions. Pharmaceuticals get patented. Software code can get either a copyright or a patent, and there's differences in the way that law works that we're not going to go into, mostly because I'm not 100% sure about those differences. All right, but a patent is good for 20 years. For 20 years, the inventor has sole rights to use it, to make money from it, unless they give permission to someone else or sell permission to someone else. After that, anyone can use it. So if you take allergy medicine like Claritin or Zyrtec, that used to be under a patent, and you could only buy it from the people who invented it, and it was a lot of money. Those patents have since expired, which is why I have generic, I think Allertech, I think this is Zyrtec. We've got Claritin somewhere too. Mucinex, I've got generic Mucinex. So stay safe, man, coronavirus. All right, so that's patents. The next is a license. So a license is when you grant someone the right to use your intangibles. We also call this intellectual property. So if I say intellectual property or IP, I'm talking about intangibles. All right, so this shirt, many, many years ago, you can see it's a little old, but many years ago, a company called Rydell, I think, licensed. They came to an agreement with UCLA and they paid UCLA a sum of money so that they could put the UCLA logo on their shirts. And that is how they were legally able to produce a UCLA shirt that I was then able to buy. Well, that's basically pretty much anything you buy that has like a sports team logo on it. If you have a 49ers hat or Raiders hat or whatever, that's all been licensed by the owner of that IP, probably the team. Okay, a franchise. So a franchise is the right to use a company's products, processes, logos, all of that. Common ones are McDonald's, Subway, Baskin-Robbins, if you can still find a Baskin-Robbins, those are all franchises. So the person who owns the McDonald's that you go into it's not McDonald's, it's their own private business, but they've paid a franchise fee to McDonald's, and that's why they're able to sell the same burgers and fries and drinks and everything that you see. My first job as a teenager was at a Burger King that was owned by a guy who used to play for the Raiders, and he had franchised the Burger King. Okay, trademark, trade name. So these are those very distinctive logos that you see. And again, only the owner of that trademark or trade name has the right to use that logo unless they give permission to someone else or sell permission to someone else. So I have a Starbucks cup. So only Starbucks can use this unless they give someone else permission. An Oracle hat. Only Oracle can put that on their hats unless they give someone else permission. All right, there's other intangibles out there, but these are probably the most common. So that is your introduction to intangibles. In the next video, we will continue to go through the in-class worksheet. All right, see you then.